came across Tim Rice because he has a group where it's dedicated to nutrition and kind of this keto approach. So I reached out to him to get him on the podcast, and this is his first ever podcast. So I'm really excited to share what he's learned, even though he's been on social media and has a huge following. He laid out in the podcast a really interesting take on his experience with diet and nutrition. All right, Tim, I have been following your work for a while on social media, Facebook primarily, and wanted to just visit with you and see how you have gotten to the point where you feel the way you do about nutrition as a registered dietitian, and just learn more about what you're doing and how we can apply those principles, to our lives.
Well, my story is, you know what? I'm going to tell you the short version. I was diagnosed with, high blood pressure, pre-diabetes. I was overweight, and my doctor wanted to put me on a statin. And, I only go to annual visits. And this was way back in 1998. So, so back in the 1900s. But anyway, it scared the crap out of me, and I started doing research. And the internet was new back then, So, but I would get books and learn, and I discovered back then what was the Atkins diet. I don't know if you've heard of that, but
Oh, yeah.
Some of the original gangsters of the low carb movement, were involved with the Atkins diet. Like, do you know Dr. Eric Westman?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay, well, he was a researcher for Dr. Atkins. But anyway, in other words, I bought the Atkins book, and it worked for me. And I didn't even care about science or anything. I just went right to the place in the book where it says, "What can I eat?" And it worked. I lost 165 pounds. I reversed my diabetes. I never took the statin because I found so much conflicting information. And this, of course, this is 25 years ago, but I got so excited about my transformation. I started teaching my friends and whatnot. And I was a salesperson at the time. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I would sell liquor to grocery stores. And I just was so impassioned about it. I wanted to, even though it was later in life, I wanted to change my direction or career. So I went back to college. I I got my master's degree in nutrition and dietetics, only to discover that what I was taught, because I had schooled myself independently, with books and the internet, almost everything that they taught me in college was wrong. So that fired me up, and I started, my social media campaign to try to educate people on, like the fallacies. I didn't realize at the time, but registered dietitians are just gatekeepers of the food pyramid. When the government, it's federally, I'm registered federally in the United States, but they want you to follow, the rules that coincide with, a lot of the dogma that, hopefully people are starting now to realize is BS, and so I just started this, I started up my Unlearn Rethink website, and I've just been trying to create content that is shareable, because that's how things float around on the internet. You share something that people are interested in, they'll share it. It's like I'm not like an influencer that cares about likes and crap like that. I care about shares. I want to make something that, just little nuggets of information that people will want to share. And it's just it's just taken off in the last, I'd say in the last 5 or 6 years. I've gotten, like almost 75,000 followers that are just sharing it, and it's exciting to me. And of course, as a registered dietitian, I counsel people, and it's it's just it's but it's very frustrating when you hear, like people in your own family or friends say that dogmatic stuff, and I'm just trying to do my part to, you know, get people really to get people to do their own research, you know, and not just, well, my granddaddy used to say, that's great. But, nutrition is a science, and it's just like any other science, just like tech, just like anything, it advances with time. And, a lot of doctors, they don't even, they're not even taught nutrition, and if they are, it's the dogmatic, eat, you know, 6 to 11 servings of grains every day, and stuff like
Right.
and stuff like that. And it's a high mountain we have to climb, but there's so much misinformation out there.
Well,
you
let's
know
dive into that, Tim. Let's hit like what was the biggest thing that opened your eyes that we're on the wrong track with kind of that status quo of nutrition.
well, prior to, my all my many diagnoses that I told you about already, I tried to do everything the traditional, count calories and eat low fat, because if I'm eating fat, it's just gonna make me fat, like, and I did all of that, and combined with running and running and running, and I it was just too hard. And then, but when I discovered about, insulin levels, and how that's what is triggering fat storage, it just opened up a whole new world to me, and I actually went back and read the beginning of that Atkins book, but since then I read every book by a trusted source that I can find. I One of the good things I did learn in college is that I learned how to read, a study, the studies that, are published in medical journals, because it's in another language, man. They use words that, if you know that the average Joe don't understand, and I at least learned how to speak their language, and I'm constantly trying to update, you know things have even changed for me over the course of my education. I I didn't I was on a ketogenic diet and I didn't even know it. But then I understood what a ketogenic diet was, and I thought it needed to be dominated by fat. 70% needs to be healthy fats. Well, there's nothing wrong with that at all. If, especially if you're like epileptic. But that's I realized that there are different degrees of low carb diets that, for different situations, like, it's really more about protein. And it took me years to realize that. Whenever somebody would, speak so highly of protein, I was all about, no, it's all about the fats. But, it's it being in ketosis, or living a ketogenic lifestyle, it isn't generated by how much. It's not a fat eating contest. It's an absence of carbohydrates contest. And it's just amazing how, my clients and myself have just reversed so many things that you wouldn't even think were, I mean, to a lay person, you wouldn't even think it was diet related. But like simple things like, like when I was telling you what, like I was doing a lot of running back when I was counting calories and didn't know what I was doing. I did damage to my knees from running like a mad person on concrete for years. And it created inflammation to the point where, I thought, well, running is just not for me. It's just going to have to be a walking thing from now on. But just eating an anti-inflammatory diet, which is mostly carnivore, is what I've evolved to. I'm running again, and my knees don't hurt. I can even, like when I do these little workouts, daily, or maybe I'll take maybe 5 days a week, and I could never do squats because there's too much involvement of my knees. I'd be doing, my dumbbells and all this and that and whatever, but squats were out of the question. Now I can do squats. My knees don't hurt anymore. Little things like that. It's like I now that I'm a registered dietitian, I can order my own labs. I don't need to play that game with the general practitioner doctor that's going to tell me that I need to go on a statin, and a lot of them don't even understand, how to interpret the lipid profile of somebody that's on a ketogenic or carnivore diet. And I don't have to deal with that anymore. And I can order them, I can order labs for my clients, and we're just taking out the middleman. We're just
Just
going
take out the
right.
middleman.
I'm a big proponent of, food is medicine. It really is. And it's also, obviously, slow poison if you're eating all the wrong things. So,
Let's take a little dive into that carb and protein aspect, because and then you had mentioned carnivore. So early on, after my son was diagnosed with cancer, I read the China study, and that was meat causes cancer. The casein protein is very very inflammatory, causing cancer. Eat plants, right? Like that's what my takeaway was from it. And so I was terrified of meat. Absolutely, cut it out of my son's diet. We limited it. Very very vegetarian in our approach, plant based vegetarian. And then as I continue to study the plant paradox, Stephen Gundry's like, hey, maybe plants aren't perfect, right? Like there's some negatives, there's some downsides of it. And then got into
oh
Terry
yes,
Walls's work, and she started incorporating
oh
organ meats and things. And so it just slowly like, hey, these are some positives of meat. And so just as that progression happened, I flip flopped really, and I'm to the point now that I'm very much a meat based, even to the extreme of carnivore in how we apply. But I want to understand more on that negative side of the overindulgence of carbs. Chris Palmer's work, Brain Energy, was very eye opening on
yes,
the brain and how it works not really well on carbs.
right,
And so
right.
tell me some of the negatives of the carbs in the way that we consume them in this standard American diet.
Well, I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is like you, you've got to eliminate sugars, and even there's some carbohydrates that have some benefits, but once you wrap your head around um, bioavailability and nutrient density, there's really no question as to which is better if you're looking at both. And then there's also, like there's lectins, and just there are chemicals in a lot of plants that that are a detriment to your cardiovascular health as well. And you mentioned, your, what was it, your daughter or your son
My
had
son.
cancer?
Yeah.
Your son. You know, what people don't realize, they look at me like I have three heads. I when I start talking about how glucose, which is, your blood sugar, can feed tumors. I'm not saying that sugar causes cancer. I'm saying that it is a fuel to grow cancer. Okay? I don't know how I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how the cancer got there in the first place, but I know that there are many cancers that thrive on glucose. So it just makes common sense to avoid extra glucose. I mean, your body is going to make a certain amount. That there's this process. It's called gluconeogenesis, and long story short, it's your liver is making all the glucose. There's a few mechanisms in your body that do require glucose, but they're very few, and your liver will create that glucose that your body needs. You don't have to eat it. Well, that was like a revolution for me. It's like, and then Dr. Westman wrote a paper, I want to say like in 2003. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but the whole point of the paper was, are carbohydrates even essential? And they're not. You you you, you have essential fatty acids, and you have essential amino acids. And so why, what is, and then when you realize that there's no vitamin or mineral that you're missing out on by not eating carbohydrates. And people say, well, where are you getting your vitamin C? Well, okay. See, that that's twofold. You can get some vitamin C from meat, if, and also when you're in ketosis, or your body doesn't need as much vitamin C, because when you're a carboholic, you've got glucose and vitamin C fighting for the same cell receptors. So you got to overload yourself with the vitamin C to get the vitamin C. But when you don't have so much glucose in your bloodstream, your body's not fighting. And when you do, like, you can get vitamin C just from squeezing a damn lemon in your water. You know what I mean? You don't need as much as you think you do. And now, and there's a little mythology there too, because people think, oh, I got a cold, it's because I didn't drink enough vitamin C. Where's the orange juice? And like, that's not that is not, vitamin C is important for your immune system, but if it's not available to your cells, you're not doing yourself any good if you're drinking vitamin C that's surrounded with sugar, because sugar is going to win that little battle with, vitamin C and sugar fighting for that same cell receptor. Sugar is going to win every time. So you essentially, it's not bioavailable. So what's the point? All you're doing is loading yourself up with sugar, and your body makes the only sugar that you need. So, I enjoy some vegetables because, they're delicious, but I don't, I can't, I can't recommend the starchy ones, and I can't eat, I mean, I just occasionally eat vegetables now, but very rarely. I've just found them non-essential, and I don't ever, I think most people, I don't know, nobody craves vegetables, do they? I mean, anybody is like, "Ooh, I just gotta have me some, Brussels sprouts." That there's nothing wrong with Brussels sprouts. In fact, that's one of the better ones. But I'm just saying it's not necessary. And if you're metabolically challenged, like if you have a metabolical disease, if you're overweight, if you have diabetes, if you have high blood pressure, you have heart disease, and you get rid of all of that inflammatory, the uh, elements to plants, it's amazing how quickly your symptoms start to reverse themselves. Your blood pressure goes down. People don't realize is that blood pressure, they think it's all because, oh, I put too much salt on that steak. Nope. It doesn't have anything to do with salt. It really doesn't. What it has to do with is a salt retention. You look at the root cause. What is causing me to retain sodium, sugar, or sorry, salt, sodium? And the answer is all of this insulin that I'm generating because of all the sugar that I'm eating. It triggers my kidneys to retain sodium. Sodium isn't the cause of the high blood pressure, it's the retaining of sodium. So you quit the sugar, then you don't have excess insulin, your blood pressure goes down. It's like magic. But I mean, if God bless, I'm taking care of my mother right now. She's 82 years old. If I went in there and I asked her what food causes high blood pressure, she'd tell me, oh, salt, you know, because that's what it's ingrained. It's just because sodium retention is just a symptom. It's not, you've got to find the root cause and address the root cause. And it's hyperinsulinemia is like the root cause of almost all metabolic diseases. And the best way to get rid of hyperinsulinemia, get rid of sugar.
Get rid of sugar. Get rid of all those excess carbs. So one thing that kind of stands out with all of this is when we look at cancer specifically, we got Otto Warburg to look back on, and he
Yes.
indefinitely, like there or without question, glucose fuels cancer metabolism. And then so
Yes.
then Dr. Thomas Seyfried, he's taken it a step further and identified that yes, Otto Warburg was right, but we've also got the glutamine metabolism there too, which fuels it. So, and Dr. Seyfried's, he told me, he said, meat does not cause cancer, but neither does sugar, but it absolutely fuels it. And so that
Yes.
approach has been really eye-opening for me. And so going back to my kids, my oldest is now, he's fourth grade. So, we'll go in there and have lunch with them. And all I see on these lunch tables is milk. And I think it was 26 grams of sugar in a carton of chocolate milk. There were
Oh,
baked beans. It was, these little pizzas. And all it was is this absolute sugar-filled trash. Right, is what the kids were
yes.
eating. I mean, now we send my kids lunches with them, but we have that going on to where we do have the hyperinsulinemia. And the big connection for me to go a step further is minerals, right? And so now because of that, we're burning magnesium at an extremely high rate. And so we have this magnesium deficiency that is an epidemic. I have
Yes.
seen simply clean up your diet and supplement with magnesium to be an absolute game changer for so many people.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm a food first kind of person, but magnesium has been depleted in the soil, and like you said, it's we're way more magnesium depleted now than we were 100 years ago because everything, the soil's changed and everything. I, for most things, I'm a food first. You don't need supplements because you need it in your food. But the only the only uh, vitamin that I take for myself is magnesium because of what you just said. I I need, well, and I occasionally take melatonin because I get so worked up I have difficulty sleeping. But that's natural too, and whatever. But but I don't need. I get all the essential, vitamins and minerals from my food. But you're right, magnesium, and also it helps you sleep. It relaxes you if you take it at night. It was a game changer for me. I'm a big proponent of supplementing with magnesium.
Magnesium. So I have a farmer's market, and then because of what we've gone through with Lander, my son, we added a health food store, and so it's really, I'm primarily focused on the gut microbiome and minerals. Those two things are just
Right.
extremely important. In when you look at it, you got the work of like Morley Robbins, where he brings in copper, which is really really interesting, and then
Right.
magnesium, and so I really think because of the ag connection we have, it is absolutely positively mineral deficient in our food system, regardless. And that's because it goes back to this soil. It goes to glyphosate, the chelating agent that just binds up the
Yeah.
minerals that could be there. And so I think just because of how the world is at the moment, we have to supplement with minerals. And I think that we get
Yes.
our other essentials, amino acids, our fat soluble vitamins. I think that comes from food, and I agree wholeheartedly. It's interesting that you brought up melatonin because I've spoken with Dr. Russell Ryder, and he is the melatonin man. I think Dr. Ryder's now 86, been studying it since like 64 or something. And where that has been a game changer, Tim, is in the cancer world, the alternative cancer world. They are showing the efficacy of utilizing high dose melatonin as stopping metastasis. And
Oh
this
my.
this is a relatively new study. I think it came out in July of this year that Dr. Ryder published, showing that. And so I'll send you that, when we wrap up, because it's something that I think we should all be aware of. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. One thing that I do want to hit on, this is kind of the main reason that I even reached out to you, is the MTHFR. I think that's something that we need to do a lot better job of explaining and getting the awareness around that. And so I have 3 SNPs that are, messed up. That means my kids have, at least one, right? I've not had them fully DNA tested to know all of it, but
Right.
what I was really scared about early on was we got to have folate. We got to have folate. And then you start looking at this folic acid connection that is just absolutely poison. But where do you get it? And
Right.
everything you read online or anything the dietitian's going to say is you need your greens. Get your greens, get your greens, get your greens.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
that takes us in this vegetable tangent, right? To where now we have phytic acid, we have oxalates, we have all these other negatives that, Dr. Chafee, I think, has done a really good job on laying that out there. But what have you seen with MTHFR, and how would you recommend, a client to deal with it?
Honestly, I don't want to steer anybody wrong. When I'm not an expert on a certain element of of nutrition, I my next step would be to look into it from credible sources. But I honestly haven't, with my clients, I haven't experienced a lot with that, and I know very little.
I
And
think
I'm
it's
sorry
such
to
an important.
disappoint.
No, you're good. You're good, brother. I think that's what we have to do is like we kind of identify it and then let's go down and figure out what works and what doesn't work. What Dr. Chafee said was he said add liver, right? Like add liver,
Right.
get your
Well, yeah.
folate from liver.
Well, and I'm a huge proponent of organ meats, and average Joe is gonna like, kind of give me that look because everybody, like, well, Grandma made me eat liver and onions when I was a kid, and I hated it, and but oh my God, if you look at it like medicine. I mean, beef liver, calf liver, all the organ meats are just probably the healthiest of all meats, when it comes to, the nutrient density and bioavailability. And, if that's where, like all these foodies, it's like you want to, you, when they're creating their delicious meals, and all they do is add sugar to it, and that makes it delicious. I ain't impressed.
Yeah.
But you want to be a real chef. Make beef liver taste delicious. And I think it can be done. I mean, I've gotten so used to eating liver that all I do is just put, what is it called? Montreal steak seasoning, and just put it on there with some salt and some pepper. But, but I look at it like it doesn't have to be delicious, man. It's medicine. Damn it.
Yeah.
It's medicine.
A
Eat your
super
liver.
easy Yeah, a super easy workaround that we've done is we've just worked with our farmers in the processor to add heart and liver to the ground, and that ancestral blend, you don't even notice it's in
Oh,
there. It's easy, so you do a burger or whatever, and you've got your liver in there, and then of
there
course
you
the
go.
heart has a ton of benefits too. So, what
Right.
can we do to send people your way to learn more? Where can we find out more about your work and what you do?
Well, on Facebook, um, my professional page is Unlearn Rethink. Um, of course, feel free to follow my page, Tim Rice RD, and but the most important thing, and every day when I post on my professional page, I post a link, and that's an invitation to my Facebook group. That is where I share all of whenever, you know, um, Dr. Chaffee or anyone, Eric Westman, I follow all the credible doctors. Whenever they post anything, I share it in there. So it's like a one stop shop. You go into my group. It's called Unlearn Rethink Interactive, and you can ask questions. And there's so many knowledgeable people in there. I mean, we have diabetes experts. We've got experts on type 1 diabetes. The Hashimoto's. If you ask a question about any malady, there's going to be an expert in there that'll answer your questions if it's not me. And but like there's I would say, of all the people on social media that I follow, the credible sources, that generates about between 30 and 45 new postings every day. So it's like reading a nutrition newspaper on the internet,
Yeah.
because whatever's new, whatever's happening, programs, uh, there's a lot of um, seminars. I posted all on there. New articles. It's like just recently there was a Harvard study where they were saying that red meat causes diabetes. And then of course every reputable doctor out there is debunking it, and so I put all the versions of of different people debunking it. Zoe Harcombe, Nina Ty Schultz. They all and it's just a way, you know I try to teach people how to do their own research, but I look at my Facebook group as a jump start on that, because at least i I put in there what I feel is a credible source. And when you start reading it, it's like just earlier you mentioned, when you were talking about that doctor, about melatonin, I had never even heard of him. And now, thanks to you, I know about him, and I'm going to look into him, and I'm going to learn everything about him and his work and all that stuff. But that's like for those people who are scared, and they're obese, and they just got diagnosed with diabetes, and they're trying to learn how to reverse it and do something for their health. It's just a it's My Facebook group is a jump start to just figuring out what works for you. and and those are I have my own website, but it's just kind of sitting dormant right now. I've been working with a group called Health Quest Global. That they're an upstart that hasn't gone live yet, but they're going to be a big deal because they've got resources, and they've got some of the most popular and most important low carb doctors. Ken Berry, you've heard of Ken Berry.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's coming on the
Yeah.
podcast soon.
Oh, he I love Ken Berry because he knows how to talk to the average guy. You know what I mean? I got to watch it because I'll use big words, and then people will glaze over, but he knows how to talk to, average Joe, where, and sometimes like when I'm going to be talking about a certain thing with a client, I'll watch one of his videos because he helps me put it in, and he's got that southern drawl just like me. So,
I
and
love it.
I'm
I love it.
yeah, I remember before anybody knew who he was, he came and wanted to do a live video on my Facebook group, and I didn't even know who the hell he was at that
Yeah.
point. And this was
Yeah.
like 6, 7 years ago. And I figured, well, what the hell? I said, do it. It's like, I don't know what his philosophy on this and that and the other is. I didn't know who the hell he was, but he was so nice. I just figured, oh, what the hell? I put it on there and
Yeah.
put him in there. And then I've just watched him become like, now I see his face at the grocery store on those magazines when you're checking out. It's like I've just watched him blow up, and it's been very exciting. I've watched a lot of that. But anyway, everyone is welcome if you want to find me on. I use Instagram just to make the graphics that I hopefully are shareable and that are educational for people, but I'm mostly focused on Facebook. Unlearn Rethink is my professional page where all those graphics that I made live, and most importantly, Unlearn Rethink Interactive is where the articles and the studies and everything is. That's my passion, is just educating people. And so many people have just turned their medical situations around just from reading and applying it to
Yeah.
their lives. It
Well,
doesn't even
keep it up, my
require.
friend. Yeah, thank you for your work. Keep it up. Appreciate your time. And yeah, you send me anything you've got. I'll stay active in the community, and then I'll send you that study that Dr. Ryder sent me when we get off here.
Hey, and thank you very much for inviting me to do this. I'm trying to get used to this. I told myself as a New Year's resolution, I've turned down so many opportunities to be on podcasts just because I was shy and
Yeah,
scared, uh, and I told myself this New Year's resolution, I'm not going to say no to podcasts. And then it's like, just when I thought of that, here we are. It's not even New Year's yet, and then this neurologist in the Philippines, I call him Dr. Don because he has a last name that I can't pronounce. He invited me on his podcast, and then right when I finished doing that one, then you asked me, and I was like, you know what? I told myself I'm not going to say no. I don't know you, you don't know me, but I want to meet people, and I want to get out there, and I appreciate the opportunity that you gave me to do my second podcast.
I appreciate that, buddy. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, podcasts are a big deal. Get on them, and we'll keep plugging away. The community's big. There's a lot of us coming together, and I think a lot of positive change right around the corner.
Well, God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Sowing Prosperity. Be sure to follow along across the social media platforms, including YouTube, and be sure to go to sowingprosperity.com.